Right. Good. Okay. Right. Great. Fantastic. All right. Welcome, everybody. And we've got a tremendously interesting shiur today, Bezrat Hashem. Um, let's start off with our tefillah, which is... I've lost it. Here it is. Okay. Here comes Maurice. Um, put all that over there. Be easier. Right. Is it? I'm confused. What am I looking at here? Right, okay, I think I'm just about organised here. All right, here we go. Um, I want to dedicate the learning for all the wounded, for Shalema, and also for a friend uh, um, who's just been diagnosed with a serious illness. So her name is Norit Ronit Bat Chana, or for Shalema. Wait a minute, how do I... She wants to come in. Won't let me get her. Why won't she come in? I don't know. I won't let her in. Okay. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב הרחמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה, בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו, חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל נכשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמנעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Okay, Beseder Gamor. Wonderful. Right, okay. So this is a brand new piece that I've never taught before, so hopefully it will be okay. It's about Jacob's ladder. And I read in the Zohar, I was looking up Vayetze, that the gematria for the ladder in Hebrew, in Sulam, is the same gematria as Sinai. Okay, and of course the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, and the ladder is, as you'll see, a means by which, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Rabbi Ashlag calls his commentary on the Zohar the commentary of the ladder, and of course it's inspired from Jacob's ladder. So we're going to look at an article of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, which really looks at the ladder in the light of our practice of Torah mitzvot. So I thought that would be a beautiful thing for us to learn together. So let me change the share and get the material. Okay. So he asks a question, Mao shasulam hu ba'alachson ba'avodah. What does it mean that the ladder, okay, that Jacob dreamed, okay, is at an angle, okay? We go up a ladder, it's not straight up, it's always at an angle, all right? What does that mean? That it's slanting. What does that mean in our actual service for God? Hakatuv Omer, the scripture says, V'halom, and he dreamt. V'nei sulam utzav arza, and behold, there was a ladder planted on the ground, V'rosho mageh hashamayma, and its head reaching the heavens. V'nei malachei Elohim olim v'yordim bo, and behold, the angels of God are going up and going down on it. V'yesh lahavin, and we need to understand. Ma meramez lanu, what is this hinting to us? Shasulam muchach lamod balachson, that the ladder needs to be at an angle, at a slope. Shekachanu roim etzleinu, we see the same thing by us. Im hasulam omed yashar, yifshar la'alot alav. If a ladder is like bolt upright, it's very difficult or even impossible to go up on it. U'komo sheRashi mevi drashat Chazal, and it's like Rashi brings the explanation of the sages, v'zeh leshono, and this is what the sages say. Amar Rabbi Elazar b'shem Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra. Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, Hasulam hazeh omeid beBe'er Sheva. This ladder is standing in Be'er Sheva, ve'emtza shipuro mageh keneged Beit HaMikdash, and the middle of its slope is opposite the Beit HaMikdash, is opposite the temple in Jerusalem. That's the metaphor, okay? Ad kan leshono. That's the end of his quotation. Zot omeret hasulam uchach lamod b'shipua. So according to this description, Be'er Sheva is in the south, the Beit HaMikdash was in Jerusalem, sort of like middle of the country, okay? So therefore the ladder had to be standing at a slope. What has this got to teach us about our service for God? And there's another question we can also ask, which many of the commentators ask. Madua katuv b'malachei Elohim olim v'achar kach yordim? Why does the scripture say that Jacob dreamt that the angels of God were going up and subsequently going down? Surely it should have said the opposite way round, that the angels of God were going down and then coming up, no? But in fact it says the other way round, that the scripture says that the angels of God were going up and then coming down. So in order to understand all this, first of all, we need to understand what is in general, like in an overall look, what is this service that's been given to us to do in fulfilling Torah and mitzvot? Surely the purpose of creation was to give goodness to the created beings. So, if that's the case, why do we need to do this work? K'moshe katuv, as is spelled out, Yagati, I labored, Umatzati, and I found, like the light, Ta'amin, believe it. Lo Yagati, I didn't labor, Umatzati, but I got the light anyhow, Al Ta'amin, don't believe that. Hayigiyah zolamali, why do I have to do this work? What does this add to us, give to us, with respect to our purpose of creation, which is in order to give goodness to the created beings? But as it's written in the very beginning of the Eitz Chaim of Rabbi Chaim Vital, in the words of the Ari, שבכדי להוציא לאור שלמות פעולותיו, that in order to bring out to light the perfection of his works, היה תיקון, there was a tikkun, which is called the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum. What does the tzimtzum consist of? Basically, the vessel of the Ein Sof felt that it was receiving and the light was giving. Now, in the Ein Sof, there's no problem with that. Hu ushmo echad. He and his name are one. Refers to the light, which is the goodness of God, the vessel, which is the way to receive the light, okay, the desire to receive the light, and they are complete one. Oneness, unity. However, the vessel felt like it was kind of a passive receiver. The light is giving and the vessel is receiving. It didn't want that. It wants to be in extra affinity of form. Just as the light is giving, it also wants to be giving. And once it made that decision, it said, I want to be giving just like the light is giving. The first thing that happened was tzimtzem, contracted its desire to receive and stopped receiving. Okay? Because it didn't want to receive on the basis of just being a receiver. All right? Now, if it wants to receive from the basis of receiving in order to give pleasure to the Creator, because if the purpose of creation is to bring forth the perfection of his works, if the purpose of creation is to give goodness to the created beings, then the vessel can see that by actually receiving only for the purpose of giving pleasure to the Creator, that's a kind of giving. Okay? That would count as pure giving. Like, in order to allow the Creator to bring forth his creation, that's a kind of giving indeed. Okay? All right? So this is called the moment of Tzimtzum. Now, there's a spiritual rule which says what is a choice in the higher one becomes an obligation in the lower one. So following this choice of the vessel of the Ein Sof, okay, klomar shnaseh ha'elem ve'esteh b'makom malchut, that there's become a hiddenness of the light, okay, at the level of the malchut, when it's using its receiving for its own sake, meaning that the light is not present anymore when the vessel is simply wanting to receive. And what's actually happened is, in order to fulfill the desire to stay in affinity of form, okay, the light can no longer be received by the vessel for the sake of receiving, instead of which, okay, over its desire to receive, it places what's called a masach. A masach is a barrier, okay? Says, I want to receive, but I'm not going to receive because it's more important for me to stay in affinity of form with the light. It's more important to me to keep to the rule that was made of the Tzimtzum. I want to carry out the work that has been given to me, okay? So this is called the Masach. For example, when we're hungry on Yom Kippur, it's not that we're not hungry on Yom Kippur. Of course we're hungry, all right? But we put a barrier over our desire to eat because we want to stay focused on the Torah and mitzvot. We want to only stay within the framework of Torah and mitzvot. Okay? So what is this masach? What does this barrier say? That it doesn't want to receive more than it can intend for the sake of giving. Zeu shegaram lanu avodah. And this is entirely the issue of the work. בגלל זה אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, דווקא יגעתי ומצאתי תאמין. And it's because of this fact of the importance of keeping the rule of the Tzimtzum that the sages have said, I labored and I found, believe it. ומהי היגיעה? And what is the work? שהאדם צריך לעבוד על מנת להשפיע. That person needs to use everything he's been given by God, not for the sake of receiving for himself alone, but for the sake of giving. כי מצד הטבע האדם בנברא ברצון לקבל התועלת עצמו. His innate nature, our innate nature, the way we've been created, is as in the Ein Sof, as in the infinite, simply to receive. Okay? And when we receive against the rule of the Tzimtzum, we're actually receiving for ourselves alone. And when we do that, al kli ze naseh tzimtzum v'hester, then this desire simply to receive for ourselves alone just shuts off the light. Okay? That we no longer can see the light of God. We get little lights in this world, but that's not the light that the Torah is talking about. The light that Torah is talking about is the absolute consciousness of the revelation of the light of God within our consciousness. The consciousness of the presence of God. The revelation of the joy, okay, within our being. That's the light that wants to come in, okay? But that's the light that we simply don't see when we are using our will to receive for ourselves alone. However, when a person works for the sake of giving, okay, and even this is working for the sake of giving is against our built-in nature, and this is the labor that he's talking about. Mishum shavudazai kasha, and it really is hard work because it's against our nature. But when we are able to do that, that's when the light can come in. לכן, אם אומר מישהו שעובד השם ולא מרגיש שום יגיעה, בטח שזהו מטעם שעובד לתועלת עצמו. So if somebody comes along and says, well, he's serving God, but he doesn't feel any difficulty about it, he doesn't feel that it's hard work, he's not going against his nature, that's because he really is simply just working for himself alone. Okay? ולא לתועלת השם. And that is called Torah shelo lishma, Torah which is done not for its own sake. He's not trying to get to, or he is at this point not yet ready to work for the sake of God. מי שעובד לתועלת השם, הסימן הוא שהגוף האמור מכונה רצון לקבל מתנגד לזה. And somebody who's really trying to practice Torah mitzvot for the sake of God, for the sake of giving, what's the sign of that? That his whole being, his ego, his body, what he feels to be himself, okay, all that aspect which belongs to his will to receive is simply going to oppose him. It's extremely difficult for a person to work for the sake of giving, just using his own strength. It's so difficult that he actually needs the help of God. And on this the sages said, a person's evil inclination overcomes him every day. And if it weren't for the fact that the Holy Blessed One helps him, he wouldn't be able to stand up to it. So the work that we're talking about is defined that we need to serve God, do our work in Torah and mitzvot, for the sake of God. Okay, that's the work that he's talking about here, that we're talking about. וזה שצריכים לעבוד לתועלת השם, אינו חס ושלום ממש לתועלת השם. But we need to be a little bit careful here, what we're talking about here. He said, when we say we need to work for the sake of God, that doesn't actually mean that God needs our work. Okay? שהקדוש ברוך הוא צריך את העבודה של האדם, אלא זה נכנס בתור שלמות פעולותיו. Okay? But this comes into the framework of perfection of his works. כלומר שעל ידי זה שאדם עובד לתועלת השם ולא לתועלת עצמו, meaning that through the fact that a person is working not for himself, but for the sake of God, then a person is fit to receive the good and the joy, bלי shum busha, without feeling any embarrassment whatsoever. Why? Because he's receiving only for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator. He now acts like this sort of like infinite channel of love, because he's the channel. He's not a finite vessel. He's not receiving for himself alone. Okay? And so therefore, the perfection of God's works can absolutely be shown to him, and he can be a channel for that for others as well. אולם בסדר עבודה שאדם צריך להגיע למעלת הדבקות. But in the order of work, and the work we're talking about is this work, that a person needs to come eventually to the absolute unity with God, dvekut, כמו שכתוב ולדבק בו, as it's written in the Devorim, that our purpose is to cling to God, to be one with him. אין אדם יכול לעלות ברגל אחד. A person can't climb up on one foot. לצריכים שתי רגליים. We need 2 feet, ימין ושמאל, the right and the left hand line. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, as the sages said in the Talmud, לעולם תהא שמאל דוחה וימין מקרבת. Always you should have the left hand pushing away and the right hand bringing close. Okay, we need 2. If you imagine ourselves going up a ladder, you need 2 feet to go up the ladder. All right? Perush means מצד אחד האדם צריך לראות שהוא נדחה מורחק מהשם. What does this feel like in our daily work? What does these going up on these 2 feet really feel like? Right and left. So on the one hand, a person needs to see that he's not very close to his purpose, that he's separated from God. Okay? כלומר לראות איך שהוא מורחק מדבקות השם. He needs to see just how far away he is from unity with God, how far away he is from actually doing aspects of giving. והוא משוקע מאהבה עצמית. He's sunk in his selfish love. ועד כמה שהוא רוצה להתגבר בעבודה להשפיע, and to, however much he really wants to overcome his basic nature and work only for the sake of giving, what does he see? He feels he's going backwards. On the contrary, what does he see? He sees that his evil inclination, his will to receive from himself alone, is getting the better of him every day and in a greater measure. He comes to a total decision. שאין שום אפשרות שתהיה מציאות שיוכל להשתחרר מן האהבה עצמית, ואם השם לא יעזור לו הוא אבוד. He feels that on his own, he can't get out of his selfish love, and if God doesn't help him, he's lost. ואומר, and he says, עכשיו אני לא צריך להאמין שהשם הוא זה, אלא אם אזכה לדבקות השם, אגיד שאני רואה בתוך הדעת שהשם עזר לי. He even says, Now I don't have to believe that God is helping, because if I merit to unity with God, I will certainly be able to see with my clear knowledge that God helped me. As it's written in the Psalms, Im Hashem lo yivne bait, shav amlu bonav bo. If God doesn't build a house, it's a waste of time, the builder's building it. ואין לו מה לעשות, רק לבקש מהשם שיעזור לו לצאת משליטת הרצון לקבל. And he's got nothing he can do, only ask God that he would help him get out of the control of his own will to receive for himself alone, his selfish love. ולפעמים אין לו אפילו כוח לבקש מהשם שיעזור לו. And sometimes it even happens that we don't even have the strength to ask God to help us. וזו נקראת רגל שמאל. And all this is called the left-hand foot, okay? שהוא הולך על דרך שהוא רואה איך שהוא מלא קלקולים וחיסונות. That's when he's walking on the path where he sees how full he is of rottenness and lacks. כידוע ששמאל בעבודה נקראת דבר צריך תיקון. And the left-hand line in our service of God is designated as that aspect which requires tikkun. וזה נקרא לעולם תהי שמאל דוחה. And this is what it's called. One second. That for always the left-hand line pushes us away. ורגל השנייה, and the other foot, נקראת ימין, is the right-hand line. כי דבר שאינו צריך תיקון נקרא בעבודה ימין. Because what doesn't need any tikkun, which is perfectly okay just the way it is the service comes from the right-hand line. כלומר, that is to say, האדם צריך לדעת איך שיש לו זכייה גדולה, וזה שהוא זכה להיות בין אלה שמשמשי המלך. A person needs to know what a tremendous gift he's been given, what a tremendous merit that he's merited to be among those who serve the king. והוא צריך להאמין, and he needs to believe, שזה מה שיכול לתת קצת זמן מעבודתו, שעוסק בצורכי עצמו ולעסוק בתורה המצוות, נקרא עבודת השם. And a person needs to believe that I can't remember which bit I translated. I got muddled up with my languages here. Okay, so a person needs to know that he has a tremendous merit to be among those who merit to be able to serve the king. And he needs to believe that he can give just a little bit of time of his work, okay, taking away from dealing with his own needs and to practice Torah mitzvot, which is called the service of God. It's not from his own power, that he wants to serve God. It was the Holy Blessed One who gave him the thought, who gave him the desire, that have just a little bit hold on Torah mitzvot. And he's so happy. Because he got even just a little bit of merit to serve the king. And he's so grateful and he thanks God on this. He looks around and he sees so many people in the world who don't have the merit for this. And he feels how close God has brought him. And this is what is called, and the right-hand line brings us close. That the right-hand foot, mashmulta, means that he feels himself close to God. Now, for most people, it's funny, because you wouldn't think this, but most people who come from the West, like most of us, the left-hand line is actually easier, all right? We tend to see our criticisms, our negative sides much more easily, and the right-hand line to believe in the greatness and good of God and give thanks for even just a little bit is very much opposite for us, okay? So the right-hand line is much more, very often more difficult, but in fact it's the happier line. Now it's by working on these 2 feet, okay? 2 opposite feet, one of the left and one of the right, one seeing the criticisms and the distance and that we are from God, and one seeing the truth that God brings us close and has given us a merit to learn this material and try at least. Okay, both these feet take us upwards. יכולים ללכת למעלה למעלה. Through working on these 2 lines, which are very opposite each other, okay, we can ascend upwards. להגיע להיכל המלך, and reach the temple of the king. ובזה יכולים לפרש מה שכתוב. And in this way, we can explain what is written. והנה סולם מוצב ארצה. Here is the ladder standing on the ground. וראשו מגיע השמיימה, and its head reaches the heavens. פירוש, meaning, בסולם שעל ידו עולים למעלה היכל המלך. On this ladder, through which we can ascend, going up to the temple, the inner sanctum of the king, יש שתי קצוות, it's got 2 ends. Aleph, סולם מוצב ארצה. On the one hand, it's the ladder which is placed on the ground. שהוא בחינת קו שמאל. That aspect is the left-hand line, הנקרא ארצה, which is the earth. שאדם צריך לראות איך שהוא מונח בארציות. The left-hand line, as we said, a person needs to see how he's just, placed in his material side. ומשוקע בעצמית, how he is sunk in his selfish love. Okay? שהוא מבחינת שמאל דוחה is the aspect of seeing the negative and the left-hand line showing where we're pushed away from the service of God. ואז יש מקום להתפלל, and the virtue of that left-hand line is it gives us a real place, a real incentive, a real desire to pray to God to help us, מעומק הלב, from the depth of our heart. כי אז אדם מסתכל בתוך הדעת שלו, איך שהוא לא יכול לעשות משהו לתועלת השם. Because when a person really looks in his knowledge and he sees, can I really do anything for the service of God? And he sees that he's really wrapped up in his own self and in his own will to receive for himself alone. And he feels that on his own efforts, he really kind of can't do anything. ורק הקודש ברוך הוא לא הוציא אותו משליטת הרע שבו. And only the Holy Blessed One can take him out from the governance of the evil which is in him. ועל זה אמרו, and on this the sages said, אלמלא הקודש ברוך הוא עוזרו, אינו יכול לו. Unless the Holy Blessed One helps him, he can't overcome his own will to receive for himself alone, his own evil inclination. Okay, so that's the Sulam Mutzav Alta. That's the part of the ladder, the bottom part of the ladder, which is stuck on the ground. Okay, that's the left-hand line. And you've got the other end of the ladder, okay, which head reaches the heavens. The other end of the ladder is in the heavens. It's as if he's got complete wholeness. Mitam, where does it come from? Mitam shu samech b'chalko, because he's happy in his portion. Because even if the amount of work it can really do for the service of God in the true way is only tiny, nevertheless, he's happy, because even that tiny bit is worth so much. Okay, so he's happy in his portion. He feels himself to be absolutely overwhelmed with happiness. כי זהו זכייה גדולה שזכה לשמש את המלך. Because it's really a tremendous merit to serve the king. ולדבר עמו אפילו רגע אחד ביום. And to speak to him, even if it's only just one moment in the day. וזה בכדי שיהיה לו מצב רוח מרומם. And this is, it's certainly sufficient to give him a happy mood and to help him feel exalted. וזהו מודה משבח את המלך. And in this he gives thanks and praises the king. נמצא לפי זה, so what do we see? שהסולם הזה שעליו עולים להיכל המלך עומד באלכסון. That the ladder which we go up on to get to the temple of the king is at a slope. כי אי אפשר לעלות על סולם שעומד ישר. You can't go up on a ladder which is bolt upright. שכך אנו רואים בגשמיות. And that's the way we see things in the material world. שהסולם מוכרח לעמוד בשיפוע. That the ladder needs to stand at a slope. ושיפוע מראה שלמעלה אין זה מעלה ממש, אלא בזמן שראשו מגיע שמיימה. So what is this, what did you want to say here 1 minute? This slope shows that above is not like absolutely above, אלא בזמן שראשו מגיע שמיימה, but when his head reaches the heavens, שהולך בקו ימין, שהוא בחינת שלמות, that when he's walking on the right hand line, that he's in the aspect of completeness, אין זה סוף פסוק, that's not the end of the story. הוא צריך גם כן ללכת בבחינת ארצה, but he also needs to go on the left hand line, the aspect of the earth. היינו לראות שהוא עדיין נמצא בארץ. That is to show that he is also on the ground. So the slope shows that you need both ends, all right? They're like continually, in a way, all right? You've got to first do the ground, then you go to the heavens, then you go back to the ground again, okay? Both ends need to be present. It's not like you just go up the ladder and that's it, okay? כשהוא הולך בבחינת סולם מוצב ארצה, so when he goes in the aspect of the ladder on the ground, שהוא בחינת שמאל, בחינת מטה שבסולם, which is the left-hand line and the lowest aspect on the ladder, אין זה מטה ממש, it's not absolutely low. הוא צריך גם כן לדעת שהוא צריך ללכת בימין. He needs to know that he also needs to go on the right-hand line. שזה נקרא וראשו מגיע שמיימה, which is the heavens reach its head reaches the heavens. כלומר, גם שהם שני דברים מנוגדים הופכים זה לזה. That is, even though these are two aspects which are totally opposed to each other, they're totally opposite. מכל מקום, אין הם מרוחקים כל כך זה מזה. Nevertheless, they are not so distant from each other, שבהם מרחק ללכת מקצה אחד על קצה שני, that it's a tremendous difference to go from one end to the other. Okay, why? Because they're both trying to get to the same thing. Okay, we want to get to serve God properly. These are just two different approaches, all right? And what Rabbi Ashag is teaching us, he's teaching us that we need both, all right? It's like, the way I think of it, the right-hand line and the left-hand line, I think of it as food and salt, okay? You need both, all right? Now, the proportions, we're not talking about proportions here very much, but in general, the right-hand line is more like the food, okay? You need more. You need to be on the right-hand line most of the day. And the left-hand line is very potent, so you need less of it, okay? Salt, okay? Like the proportions of food and salt is more or less the right-hand line and the left-hand line. So, but they're both ways of reaching God, okay? So they're not that distant between each other, all right? But we need both, okay? צריכים ללכת בשני קווים. So we need to go in the two directions. וזה נקרא שיפוע. And this is designated as a slope. שזה מה שצריכים ללכת בשני קווים, which shows that we need to go both ways. וזה נמשך מהתיקון הנקרא צמצום ב'. And this comes from the tikkun, which is called Tzimtzum Bet. Now, at the very beginning of this shiur, we looked at the idea of the Tzimtzum, okay? That the vessel of the Ein Sof wanted to restrain its will to receive for itself alone and decided it would no longer receive for itself alone. That's what it decided. Okay, what it could receive for the sake of giving, it would receive. Otherwise, it's not receiving. But if you create a human being, okay, and you give him a will to receive for himself alone, and basically tell him don't do it, don't use it, it's very hard indeed. Okay, so God made things a little easier for us, and He did a second tzimtzum, which is called Shituf Midat Rachamim Bedin, joining the aspect of compassion with judgment. Okay? What is the judgment? The rule. The rule is you're not allowed to use your will to receive for himself alone. That's the rule. What is the compassion? The compassion is He also gives us more possibilities, and that we now have the aspect of the desire to give unconditionally. We have an active desire to give unconditionally, which comes from Bina. Okay? So, Kmo Shamu Rabbeinu Zichronam Livracha, and this is what the sages said, Mitchila Barat Olam B'midat Adin, at the beginning, God created the world in the aspect of judgment, that is, simply don't use your will to receive, okay, unless it's completely for the sake of giving, and that is called Kav Yashar, that's called a straight line. Sheyesh bo inyan ma'ala v'mata. It's just got above and it's got below. Okay, Perush. Ma'ala b'chashivutu avchina zakah b'yoter nikrat tzviat haketer. The most high aspect, which is the most pure aspect, which is called the desire to give unconditionally, is the Sfira of Keter. It is totally pure. It has no lack at all. Umata, and what's below, and is Av Bioter, is the most dense, and that's the Sfira of Malchut. And what does Malchut want? It only wants to receive. And he saw with these two extremes, okay, the world, meaning the human being, would not be able to fulfill the work that we're talking about, would not be able to come to Dveikut. Amad v'shitef momidat rachamim. So He gave a join together with this system an extra aspect of a measure of mercy. Because the Malchut, which of the aspect of simply receiving, okay, is the root of the created beings. And because that's our inbuilt nature, that's our basic nature, it's very difficult to transform that basic nature for the sake of giving. But that is what it means. That's why it says the world would not be able to survive. And this is written in the great book of Rabbi Ashlag, the introduction, the opening to the wisdom of Kabbalah. He saw that the world, meaning the human being, would not be able to reach his fulfillment, to come to Dveikut this way. Okay? באופן זה לא הייתה שום אפשרות לאדם הצריך לבוא מבחינה דלת הזה, that there wouldn't be a possibility for the human being who needs to be created from this malchut, שיוכל לסגל מעשים של השפעה, that he would actually really be able to do in practice actions of giving. ולכן הקדים מידת הרחמים. So He gave us also a possibility of compassion, a possibility of giving, a possibility of wanting to give, and joined it to the aspect of not receiving. והמאציל העלה מידת הדין, שהוא כוח הסיום הנעשה בסביבת המלכות, אל הבינה. So what did he do? He joined the will to receive, which is the malchut, and he joined it with bina, which is the midah of giving, of simply unconditional giving. And join them together. שבזה נעשה קשר לגוף האדם יוצא מבחינת ד', שיהיה כלול גם ממידת השפעה. And what does this give us? It gives hechsher. It gives a way for the ego of a human being, which it emerges from that malchut, that original malchut of the will to receive, to actually also gain desires of giving, altruism, wanting to give, compassion, wanting to love, wanting to reach out. Okay? And so through this connection of compassion with judgment, the world will be able to survive and come to its required affinity of form with the Creator. Aliyat Malchut Lebina, and so this joining together of the Malchut, which is judgment, and Bina, which is compassion, Machaneh Ari Kadosh, is what the Holy Ari calls Kav Alachson, the slanted line. Okay? All right? Now the language here is a bit difficult, but what he wants to tell us is that this is the inner meaning of the letter Aleph. All right? What do we see in the Aleph? We see a Yud on top, okay, which represents the heavens. We have a line, which is at an angle, okay? We've got the slopey line in the middle, and we have a Yud underneath, okay, which represents the bottom waters. And so that's what they call the firmament, which divides between one and the other. And we have the line in between. So the main aspect of the Aleph, which is really special, is the line in between, is the slopey line, like the ladder, okay? And this is what he says. The connection between these 2 points, which are talking about the tzimtzum, the judgment and the compassion, is the line, like that, a slopey line. And the higher aspect of the spiritual stage is Yud, above, which includes Keter and Chochmah, in the inner meaning of the higher waters, like that. And the lower aspect of the spiritual stage is the lower waters, which is the Bina, Zerampin and Malchut, which are given over to the lower created beings. And it is the lower waters. And you have like that. So what do we see? We see that the joining of compassion with judgment is called a slope. All right? And this is the spiritual route that also in the material world, a ladder, what we can actually go up on so that it can be fulfilled, needs to be at a slope. All right? And this slope represents the joining of compassion with judgment, all right, which is possible for us. It's possible for us to do our work, to reach the heavens, to reach the connection with God by working on these 2 lines, the right-hand line, which is at the top, and the left-hand line, which is at the bottom, and the ability of joining, and God has given to us that joining of compassion with judgment is able to uphold that ladder. אולם יש לדעת אשר שני קצוות הם בחינת שני כתובים המכחישים זה את זה. But we need to know that these 2 extremes, the left-hand line, which is at the bottom, and the right-hand line, which is at the top, are a little bit like the 2 scriptures which deny each other, okay? Ad shavor katuv hashlishi, which contradict each other, sorry. Ad shavor katuv hashlishi, until the 3rd scripture comes up, v'yachriya beineim, and will make that decision between them, decide which is right. Perush, shetzrichim et shnei kavim, we need both lines, because it's only through both of them that we can reach the middle line. Because you can't reach the middle line if you don't have two lines first. So when there is an argument, then you can say the third aspect comes and makes the decision, which one, where to go, how to fix this. Well, says shalom, it brings peace. Masha ein kain, im ein machloket. If there's no argument, ein tzarich lasot shalom. We don't need to make any peace. זאת אומרת, אם אנו צריכים לבחינת שלום, אז אנו מוכרחים להמציא קודם מחלוקת. So first we have the tension, the argument, the difficulty between these two lines, which are pulling in opposite in that sense, they're pulling in opposite directions, they've got different views, okay? That, therefore, there is an argument, and then we can find the place for peace. Well, Rabbi Baruch Shalom says, what do we need peace for? Shouldn't it be better? There wouldn't be an argument in the first place, then we wouldn't need any to make peace. But the answer is, but since we have in nature these two opposites, one is the left-hand line, which is the aspect of judgment. One is the right-hand line, which is the aspect of giving and the joining of compassion with judgment. We do have these opposites, okay? That's the reality of the nature that God has given us. Perush, explanation. מצד מטרת הביאה יש בנו טבע שבו נתנו רצון לקבל הנאה ותענוג. From the purpose, from the side of our creation, we have a nature that God gave us, a desire to receive pleasure and joy. מצד תיקון הבריאה, אנו צריכים ללכת בכיוון ההפוך. On the aspect of the tikkun of creation, of becoming in affinity of form with the Creator, we need to go exactly in the opposite direction. Lashpia, to be givers, just like the Creator. As the sages said, just as He is merciful, so you be merciful. So we actually have these two opposite tendencies within ourselves. Okay? So we can't say, why don't we just have peace? We're built out of an argument. We're built out of these two completely opposite tendencies. As the sages said, L'olam yagiz adam yetzer tov al yetzer ra. A person should always use his good inclination to annoy his evil inclination. Okay? If we put this in the language that we've been learning, our desire to give unconditionally, to our desire to receive, that you should annoy our desire to receive for ourselves alone. So we have this built-in tension. As the sage, as Rashi says, Shasemo melchama, that a battle starts within us. And the point of this is that, like through this battle, we discover the evil within it. And it's not that the tension and the battle and the argument is actually creating the evil. But the evil in a person is hidden. Okay, we don't tend to see our evil, our own will to receive for ourselves alone. First of all, because we don't like criticism, so we tend to run away from it. But also there's another thing, which is that we've got a lot of selfish love, and it's a natural self-love, okay? And that there's a phrase which says, love covers all sins. Okay, when we love somebody, we don't see anything wrong with them. okay? Like all mothers love their children and think they're the best in the world, okay? Because we love them, so we don't see anything wrong with them at all, okay? And in the same way, we love ourselves, and so we don't see the evil within ourselves. All right? So the fact that this tension arises, this battle comes along, helps us discover the will to receive within us, okay? Ve'im yekaneh shama or dekdusha, and if light of holiness were to come in when we're still stuck with our evil side, what would happen with our will to receive would simply snatch the lot. And then it would all go, that light would go into evil and the framework of evil into the klipot. So we actually need to do this battle. And it's through this battle that we discover what's inside of us. We discover our desires to receive for ourselves alone. We discover our selfishness. And the evil comes out of its hiding place. And it battles with our good inclination. It's through the battle that it becomes obvious. It becomes revealed. Because the will to receive for itself alone wants to battle our good inclination. And when he's manifest in its real face, a person sees, wow, this is a huge mountain. And then he comes to the recognition that he got no other advice, but he must ask God to help him to deal with his own evil. And then he will give him the ability to work only for the sake of giving. And now we can understand the explanation that the two scriptures deny each other until the third one comes and makes that decision, the deciding. The two ends of the ladder show how opposite they are from each other. On the one side is placed on the ground, which shows about lowliness, that a person sees with his understanding, with his knowledge, which he can now see how far away he is from God. He can see that he's sunk in his selfish love, which causes him to be separated from God and in change of form from God. On the other hand, the head reaches the heavens. And when he's focused on the right-hand line, and remember we need both lines, then he's focused on his complete perfection. He's happy in his portion, as if, as he's only in heaven. And he has no connection with the material side of himself. And this is how the ladder is standing at an angle, okay? So we've got these two aspects, all right, which are denying each other, which are battling with each other, until the third aspect comes and makes the decision. This is the middle line, okay? It's as if the two lines beget the middle line, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and which is the Holy Blessed One, okay? And the Holy Blessed One is the third line. we're a bit over time, but let's see if we can just finish the article. And this is what the sages taught us in the Talmud. There are three partners to make a human being. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Aviv ve'imo. The Holy Blessed One, his father and his mother. Aviv mazriah haloben, Ima mazrat ha'odem, v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten bo ruach u'neshama. This is the language of the Talmud. His father gives him the white, the mother gives him the red, and the Holy Blessed One gives him the soul and the ruach and neshama, the spirit and the soul. V'yesh lefaresh, Abba noten lo ben, the father gives him the white, kaviv hu bechina rishona b'avodah. The father represents the first aspect in his service of God, which is the right-hand line, the aspect of shlemut, the aspect of wholeness. Bet, who kav small, the second, the mother, is the left-hand line, which is the aspect of lack, which is called the mother, and she gives the red, which is the aspect of the lack. And the Holy Blessed One gives him the soul and the neshama and the ruach, the soul and the spirit. So the Holy One gives him the required help. As the Holy Zohar says, Mesayinoto benishmata kadisha. The Holy Zohar helps us with our holy soul. As the Zohar says, that they help us with the holy soul. V'zenikra she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten ruach v'neshama. So the Holy Blessed One gives the soul and the spirit. Rashi. So now we can understand what Rashi said. The Sulam, the ladder, was standing in Beersheba. All right, was standing in Beersheba, and in the middle of its slope was opposite the Beit HaMikdash. All right. Emtza, that is the middle line, is represented by the Beit HaMikdash, which is the aspect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? The next bit of the article, that's not so much to do. We can do it. The next bit of the article is about the angels going up and down. All right, but the main part of the article we've done. The main part of the article is the aspect of the two ends. The bottom end is the left-hand line, which is our will to receive for ourselves alone. And we need to see it and reject it and say, no, I don't want that, and pray about it. And the right-hand line is our will to give unconditionally, okay? And the tension between the two, and brings us to, and is resolved by God giving us the soul, okay? And so now we understand what the Rashi says. The last part deals with the angels. So if you guys want to stay for the angels, you're welcome. V'amor yesh lefaresh. And now we can explain. Madua katuv, why is it written? V'nei malachei Elohim olim. The angels of God are going up. V'achakach yodim. And after that going down. V'atzich lichtov lahefech. And surely it should have written the other way around. Mikodim yodim v'achakach olim. First they go down and then they go up. V'yesh l'taretz al derech avodah. And we can explain this through our spiritual work. היות שאלו אנשים שרוצים לעבוד לתועלת השם ולתועלת עצמם, הם נקראים מלאכי אלוהים. Those people who want to work for the sake of God and not for their own sakes are called the angels of God. כלומר, הם באו לעולם הזה בשליחות אלוהים. They came into this world on a heavenly message, as a heavenly message. היינו לעבוד בשביל אלוהים. They want to serve God. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, as the sages said, Anan shluchei mitzvah anan. They are the messengers of the mitzvah. Piresh Rashi sham, and Rashi explains, Heot shalchu lakbil pnei rosh hagolah, Rav Adam lakbil pnei rabbo b'regel. They come to receive the head of the. In those days, it was the like the greatest rabbi. Okay. Pirush anu oskim b'mitzvot anan shluchei de mitzvah. When we're practicing the mitzvot, we are the messengers of the mitzvah. That is to say, shluchei de mitzaveh. What does that mean? We are the messengers of the one who's commanding. Okay? They came into the world to be the messengers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shetzrichim lasot kol ma sheHaKadosh Baruch Hu tzaveh lasot. That all need to do and fulfill what the Holy Blessed One commanded to do. Kamo shekatuv, asher bara Elohim la'asot. That God created for us to do. She'inyan bara ubechinat yesh mi'ayin. That the issue of created is what is new, what God gave us, which is the will to receive, which came from the side of the Creator. La'asot belongs to us to do the work, okay, that we need to serve for the sake of the Creator. נמצא שאלו אנשים שעובדים לתועלת הבורא, so we find that those people who really are working for the sake of the Creator, הם נקראים מלאכי השם. They're called the angels of God. שלוחת הקודש ברוך הוא. They're like his messengers. ובזה יש לפרש. And this is what we can explain. אם הרב דומה למלאך השם, יבקשו תורה מפיו. If the Rav is like an angel of God, they should ask Torah from his mouth. ואם לאו, אל יבקשו תורה מפיו. And if not, don't ask any Torah from his mouth. מקשים על זה. And they ask this question. וכי מי שרוצה ללמוד תורה אצל רב צריך מקודם לראות מלאך השם? So what does this mean? That whoever wants to learn Torah by a Rav, first of all needs to check to see if he's an angel of God. ואחר כך לאחר שכבר ראה את צורתו של מלאך השם, and only when he's seen that he looks like an angel of God, אז זה הזמן שילך לחפש רב הדומה למלאך השם, then he can go and check out whether his Rav is like an angel of God. No. באמור יש לפרש. We can now understand שאם הרב מלמד לתלמידים את העבודה, that if the Rav is teaching his pupils how to serve God, שצריכה להיות באמנת להשפיע, that our service needs to be for the sake of giving, זאת אומרת שלשם האדם בא לעולם הזה, that is for the purpose for which a person came to this world, לעשות את השליחות השם, to serve God, ולעבוד עבור תועלת השם, and to do our work for the sake of God, נמצא שהאדם הוא שליח השם. We find that that person is an angel of God. That is what an angel is, מלאך השם. ולא שהוא בעל בית בעולם הזה, אלא שהוא עובד השם. Okay, the purpose is that he's serving God. באמון נבין מדוע כתוב מקודם, ונראה מלאכי אלוהים עולים. And that's why the scripture first says, and behold, the angels of God are going up. והטעם הוא כי בדרך עבודה להיות מלאך השם, אנו לעבוד לתועלת השם. Because in what this means in our work, to be an angel of God is simply to do our work for the sake of God. Okay? So first, צריך מקודם לעלות על הסולם. We need first of all to go up on the ladder. שזה נקרא בחינת ימין. To go to the aspect of the right-hand line, which is called ראשו מגיע השמיימה. So first we need to go to the right-hand line, which his head is in the heavens, okay? And to do the work of thanking God and being happy for even the little bit that he's given us. ואחר כך לרדת למטה. And afterwards we go back down to the aspect of the left-hand line and seeing what's true and see how far away we are and asking God to help us, okay? That's the mutzav alza, that's the part which is on the ground. ואחר כך עוד פעם לעלות. And then we go up again. שנקרא עולים ויורדים. So we go up and we go down. ואחר כך זוכים לקו אמצעי. And ultimately, through this going up and going down and going up and going down and going up and going down, finally we'll get to the middle line. when we'll be opposite the Beit HaMikdash. Hainu shakadosh Baruch Hu notenat haneshama, that the Holy Blessed One gives us the soul, va'az zochim l'dvekut Hashem, and then we merit to unity with God, which is called dvekut. Wow. Okay. Any questions? All right. I hope that was okay for you guys.
I do
That
have.
was something. We have to get through it. Too much information. Thank you so much, Edida. Wow.
I'm sorry if it was too much. It was a long one today. I liked it. I thought it was a very interesting article, so I liked it. So I chose it. But I do agree it was quite a long one today.
I think you made a great choice. I'm glad I'm going to go over it and over it because it is so amazing how it's tied together with the Aleph. I've never heard that before, and that was just absolutely, to me, mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, I find that as well. I mean, I also liked it. I like this the shape of the Aleph shows the joining of compassion with judgment. It's
Yeah,
like wow.
yeah, wow, really wow.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, wow, this is good. And I also liked that that he takes the idea of the ladder as and the angels. It's not something like it becomes something very real that we can do the work of going up and going down. That eventually we become. It's not. It's like basically what he was saying at the end is we become the angels in the sense that we're simply doing God's mission. And I thought, wow, that's also it gives us like hope and joy that. And he also didn't make it like too difficult. He said even if all we can do is one thing a day, like one moment when we talk to God, one moment when we acknowledge God, one moment when we give thanks for him bringing us close, he said that's already the right hand line.
Wow.
So I mean, he doesn't make it that difficult. He makes it like anybody can do this. You can do this.
Wow. It's very real then that we can do this, that we're no matter
Absolutely.
where we're at in our life, we can still do this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And he said that the left hand line, which is seeing the difficulties and seeing how far away we are, is really a spur to help us pray to God because it's against our nature to become complete givers. Our nature is that of receiving. Unless we can see how much problems the left hand line is giving us, we don't have an incentive to pray. So it's seeing that left hand line, which is the will to receive for ourselves alone, and actually seeing it gives us that impression, that gives us that impetus to pray to God. So I think that was also beautiful.
It's interesting that today in America is Thanksgiving, and when I lived there, I celebrated it. I was not observant, and now I'm thinking what you said. If only we spent a couple of minutes to thank God. But look, we Jewish people have Thanksgiving every single day. We start with Moda Ani.
Yes.
Isn't it something? This
Absolutely
is
amazing.
total difference. If this little thing, as you said, one little thing, if this little thing we would take into consideration, that's amazing.
Yes. That's beautiful, Tatiana. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. We have our Thanksgiving every single day.
Every day.
Every day. And not only that, but the truth is that we need to be much more on the right hand side than on the left hand side. That the right hand side is the food. Like we need to be thanks and happy and just being happy for what God gives us and allows us to do. We need to be that most of the day. And
Right.
just a little bit on the left-hand line to sing where we're falling down. And I always think of that relationship as the right-hand line needs to be the food and the left-hand line the salt. Okay, that's the
Yep.
proportion. So the right-hand line is most of the time we need to be happy, grateful, thankful. You know, I was reading a poem just before the class. I was reading a poem of Yehuda Levi in English, and he was saying, you know, here he was in exile, and he was lamenting, you know, the fact that he was so far away in exile, and Jerusalem was so far away. And I thought, here we are in Jerusalem, and we take it for granted.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, there was 2,000 years of exile.
Hmm.
And Jews wrote poems and longing for Jerusalem. And here we are in Sfat, Jerusalem. It's like, wow. You
Yeah,
know,
it
just
is.
think of that. It's just such a big thing to give thanks for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
On this note, thank you so much, Yedida, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Thank
Shabbat
you.
Shalom.
Thank
Shabbat
you.
Shalom.
Shalom, and thank you,
Shabbat Shalom.
Yadida.
You're
Thank you,
very,
Yedida.
very
Thank
welcome.
Shabbat
Yeah,
Shalom,
Shabbat
everybody.
Shalom.
Thanks.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you. Thank you, Yehida. Appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Shabbat Shalom.
You know, one thing can I say real quick is that
Yeah.
when you said the left hand is a spur to help us to pray. Well, of course, me being, you know, a cowgirl, horses and everything, that really sunk in because I use spurs, and it's like, okay, so now the spur, when I get hit with this, I know that God's hitting me with His spur to help me to get with it now.
I guess, yeah.
He'll spur me on.
He'll spur you on. Yes, that's nice.
Thank you, Yehuda. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.